lots of practice and drills. What would be good and impactful to the brain for recall? A song. Understand? So this will actually bring about a lot of recall potential in learners. So when they want to actually recall some aspect of language they've studied, they have studied using both the left and the right brain. And so recall will be more effective. How do you finish? If you were going to give them activities, writing activities, what would you do? Would you get them to write a composition on a house on fire? Totally different from what you taught them, right? Yeah. So writing activity, if you were a good writing teacher, writing activity would be something like this. What is all this about? You tell them, okay, no essays for you this week. We are not going to do essays because we are not going to sit for an IELTS or a TOEFL. What we're going to do is we're going to write poetry and say, oh, poetry is so difficult. No. Okay? But yesterday we did adverbs. Why did we do poetry? Something different. I said, this is a kind of fun activities. Let's play with words. Okay, this poem, you only use 3 words. And all the letters must be the same. If you start with B, second line must be B, third line must also be starting with B. So, think of an animal or something. A car, an animal. Alright. Wait. Think of an animal, make it do something, and make it do that thing in a way you like it to do. Like, for instance, if I start with the word bee, the insect bee, B-E-E, okay, make it do something. What do bees do? Buzz. Yes, that's also starting with B, right? How do they buzz? How do they do it? How do they do it? Busily. Why are you so scared lah? Yeah? Badly, yes. David says badly. Bees buzz badly because the drunken bee. Yeah, somebody put a glass of beer in there and he thought it was honey. So he had a sip and so it's buzzing badly. So many things. Think of another word. Yeah? Busily. Alright. So notice what aspect of language again? Adverbs again. You don't realize that you're teaching them writing, but also emphasizing adverbs again. So these are the things that we're actually looking at. When you start looking at teaching something, don't say, let me start with looking at how the textbook can help me teach. If you start doing that, then you will always end up under the control of the textbook. You will always find excuses not to be an innovative teacher. You will always find an excuse not to make your students enjoy your classes. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to start looking back at what you studied in the university on methodologies and start looking at how you're going to go back to the good old days when people were more interested in making classrooms more interesting. Okay? How about making things which are boring come alive? How about making family in Unit 1 of the textbook interesting to students? Now, have you noticed this? That all over the world, Unit 1 of a beginner textbook always starts with family, right? It must be one of the most interesting things to talk about, right? That's why they introduced it as one of the units. And usually the first unit 1 of the textbook, right? But how have you gone through school, through learning English through that unit 1, family, and how have you felt? Was it interesting? Yeah? Prof? Depends on the teacher. Depends on the teacher. Yes. David, how would you say that you look at the theme family and say, how is it presented in textbooks? Boring. Okay. Boring. Why do you think so? You have any idea? Have any opinion?
It close to the student's life, so the teacher can make use of the student's life to be innovative.
Very good. Wow, this is an innovative teacher. Now what we're trying to do is actually figure out textbooks, right? And you know the Malaysian textbooks are produced. Then is there any Malaysian in the crowd here? Good. No Malaysian. So I want to tell you Malaysian textbooks are very boring. Because it's not just that English language is difficult to teach, you have this added aspect of moral value inculcation, extreme positivism, that means everything in the textbook has to be positive, no aspects of negativism, no great-great-great-grandmother, even if she's 300 years old, must die in a textbook. Despite the fact that the functional notional syllabus in many aspects define that conveying condolences is one aspect of teaching, yet nothing appears in the textbook to help learners acquire or learn the language of conveying condolences. So somebody passes away and kids are trying to figure out how to actually use the English language if they are in a foreign country or among native speakers to say sorry. Because they suddenly realize it's as simple as what? You just say sorry. You say sorry for spilling the coffee, you say sorry for tripping on somebody's toes. You say sorry for so many things, even death. Yeah, people realize that. Okay? So, Unit 1. So, we seem to have in Malaysia a huge problem because people think families can be boring. Why? Because of Malaysian textbook, this is what happens when they introduce families. There are 3 Malaysian textbooks. This is because there are 3 different zones in Malaysia. Alright? And so 3 different textbooks used, but they have to follow this curriculum guidelines, which means you must teach family first. And so this is one book. And if you look at the family, the title of this unit is called Family Ties. What a cliche. It's crazy, isn't it? Family ties. Do you realize how difficult it is to actually grasp the concept of that word formation? Family ties. You think it's easy? No. Okay, you look at these pictures there. You have the father and the mother and the 13 and 14-year-old kids in the kitchen cooking together. In the Malaysian context, if the father was in the kitchen, the Malay kids will say, "My God, he's such a sissy, must be queen control." Same here. My God, you see? See, look at what kind of values they're trying to get across. They are trying through so many ways. In Malaysia, it's Rukun Negara, over here is Pancasila, plus all the different agendas of the state, which also agendas of education. I don't know how they get these agendas, but positivism must be emphasized. And these are the dangers. Parents cooking together with the 13, 14-year-old young adults, right? In the kitchen, eating together, playing in the park, playing frisbee in the park together, and watching TV together. In the real house, you have the mother screaming, "Mariam, if you don't come down and help me cook, you're going to go hungry." And if David is still upstairs, he says, "David, I'm going to kill you if you don't come down and have lunch now." I mean, the mom wouldn't be wanting to kill, but that's the language, right? Of course that language cannot appear in a textbook. But get close to it. Not be so far apart and make it so unnatural. Watching TV together, can you imagine 13 and 14-year-old kids watching with their parents? TV? Isn't that an insane suggestion? And nobody has died. Can you click the next slide, please? So, if you notice that the other two textbooks are quite similar, you will find that there's so much of harmony in everything you do, including washing the car together. Yeah. Yes, you know, it's like, you know, Ahmad, can you help me wash the car? No, Dad, I did that last week already. That's the usual response at home. You know, Sally, can you please help wash the car? Your mom is already here and your brother is also here. I don't know how dumb they can be, but they're helping me wash the car. And I say, can you come along? And Sally says, Dad, I've got a date today. What? You're dating already? How come I don't know? Is that the boy who lives around the corner? My God! I don't want him in this house and don't you ever go out with him again. Come and wash the car. These arguments, you know, happen in real life, but no, the textbook, there's so much of harmony involved in textbooks. Next slide, please. You see, even the third book, right? Good times together. My God, everybody's so happy. It's wonderful that people are happy and you know, the wonderful thing about things like this is if you have unreal things appearing in materials all the time, what Brian Tomlinson says in most of his journal articles with regards to materials development is they become trivial. And when they become trivial, they are uninteresting or boring. And when they're boring, kids will not be interested. When kids are not interested, you cannot engage them. So language learning and teaching will suffer as a result of boring materials like this. So what we're trying to do is not tell you tomorrow itself, change textbooks and introduce that. No. You know, some things may not happen immediately, but what you can slowly start doing is reintroducing the aspect of reality into the lives of learners. So they become connected. They become interested in what we want to get across to them. They want to be involved in the learning. You understand that? Look at the next textbook. The Pierce and Longman textbook is no different. This is used in America among immigrant learners in language classrooms. One big happy family. See? Yes. And people are talking about family trees and look, the whole page is about exercises. Now where is your emphasis? Is it on testing or is it on teaching? Testing was invented by the devil. Teaching was invented in heaven. You see? And if your whole life is spent working on exercises, what are you? Are you beginning to look like an animal on a treadmill in a pet shop? You know, you're doing all these exercises all the time. You know, yes. So these are things that you guys do. Can you change to the next slide, please? So, I asked my students, are these real? And of course, the next slide. I asked my students, are they since my students said about textbook families too good to be true. Next slide, please. So we decided the textbook was not good. This is what I did with my students. I said, okay, look, let's change this a bit. Okay, you bring 10 photographs. They all say, what? 10? I said, what? Is that too many? I said, no, sir, that's too few. I've got 1 million photographs in my database. And it totally dawned upon me that this was a totally different generation. If in my days, if the teacher said, okay, I want you to tell a story about your family, bring 10 photographs and said, sir, could it be 6 please? You know, because we had physical photographs those days in albums. And you know, trying to detach those photographs from the albums itself was difficult. mom and dad would kill you. They said, don't take that. Those photographs on the album. But these days, 10 say, how on earth? How is that possible? How am I going to search a million from a million photographs? It's like trying to figure out the 670 emails that Hillary Clinton had. And trying to just figure out which one was a risk, a security risk to the country. I mean, that's how complex these things are. So what happens is, I tell them bring 10 photographs, and they go back and suddenly realize how enormous the task is. Such a simple thing, but for them it's huge. Why? These 10 photographs have to tell a story about their family. And they go back and they have to ask, hi mom, can I talk to you? He says, what? You haven't spoken to me in a week? This must be very important. And then the son goes to the dad, Dad, can I talk to you about some photographs? What? I don't have time. You don't have time for me, I don't have time. I know it's about your schoolwork, right? Your teacher rang me up just now. In fact, do you know that your teacher and I were classmates? It's time to get back at the kids, right? So what happens is, you bring 10 photographs to class and you tell them, okay, of course there's a lesson plan. Can you just switch to the slide on the lesson plan? The lesson plan of the teacher is, teacher tells a story about his family first in the class. Okay? You bring your own 10 photographs and say, okay. The reason being, like all good teachers, we are models first, right? And we also want to introduce some forms of language that can be scaffolds, right? To use, for them to use too. So they will take down some notes or look embarrassed. Okay, this is what the teacher said, I'll use that same line lah. Yeah. So and I will say, I tell stories. I said, a long time ago my parents came on this ship. Yeah, they came from India. Yeah. They were very young, and mom was only 14 when she got married. She came over, and this is the bag. Of course, I mean, they didn't take photographs of the bag, but the bag is in the house. So I took my camera and took a photograph and showed, this is the bag. This is what bags looked like in the old days. You see? And trunks, they were actually trunks, things like that. Then I tell my story, and then I tell them part 2. Now, before I go to part 2, when they do the exercise, you introduce some of the language first, and you tell them, look, these are the sentences I use. You don't have to use the same sentences, but I want you to sit down in groups of 5 and tell each other stories. Right? And then you tell them, after you've told each other stories, each group selects the best story to be presented in class. Notice that the amount of exposure to language they're getting. Yeah? Alright, next slide. What happened? Students were very enthusiastic about the stories they were telling. Because these stories were their own. These were stories of their own, not stories from the textbook. What did they do? What did Sally do on that day with her family? Well, she was basically all around the family. The family was all around her. She was cooking with her father and mother and her brother, and they were having lunch together, they were playing in the park together, and they were watching TV together. The boyfriend called the next day and said the relationship is off. You can marry your family, the boyfriend said. What? Peter? I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean, marry your family? Because you are a textbook family, Sally. And you go on living like one. I have my own life. I'm taking Jane. Yes, she just left Tarzan. Okay, so these are the things. So students interacted a lot amongst each other. There was also a lot of show of emotions. When you start talking about somebody getting married and they look at, oh my God, look at the costume. People are going like that, right? Especially the female students are, oh my God, are these real diamonds? About a wedding photograph lah. Yeah? I says, really? You all do this when you do? Because if you're coming from a different culture, right? And you start telling these stories. Say, really? You had a brother who passed away? oh, that's so sad. How did that happen? And then you have a lot of interactions, questions among students. So a textbook would not have allowed for this. And then of course, when they've told all these stories, the students choose the best stories, come out here, they talk to the rest of the class, and finally you start seeing that there's so much of exchange of language throughout. You tell them, final assignment, develop a 1-minute video on your family. 1-minute video. Look at the constraints that I'm putting on students. Constraints make them aware that not everything in life is about letting everything hang free, you know? There's no such thing, all right? Yes. So what you try to do is, you get them to organize their thoughts, get them to exercise discipline, and come up with a product, because otherwise they'll have Hindi movie style, 3 hours. You know, if you tell them, okay, come up with a movie on your family, it'll be 3 hours. Like a Tamil or a Hindi movie, you know? So you don't want that to happen, so 1 minute. And so what you do is, before that, prior to that, of course, you taught them how to use Movie Maker. It's the software that's free, you can download from the internet. You teach them how to do that. It's very simple. Alright? Next. Wait, go back to the next one. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you some of the family videos that my students did. Right? Oh my God! It's logging out. No, I forgot to turn it on just now. Hey, has anyone got a computer here? Is there another computer? Maybe starting back again. Yeah, don't worry, it's logging off because I think it uploaded something. Don't worry, I think it's starting again. Now, if you think that